Horgle Ironstrike. Horgle Ironstrike is an anomaly among the close-knit clans of the United Creels, much preferring the fiery solitude of his forge over the company of his fellow Trollkin. A loner in his creel, southeast of the Shard Spires, Horgle is uninterested in the traditional activities of his creel. Instead, he excelled in the ancestral smithing rites passed down to him by his mother, Lagertha, a skilled blacksmith and gifted warlock. He took to this instruction with a will, finding solace in the rhythms of the hammer, anvil, and flame. Horgle learned more than the rudimentary methods necessary to shape weapons and tools, for Lagertha made use of trolls brought from her hereditary lands in the Wormwall Mountains. In addition to commanding these fearsome creatures in the defense of the Creels, she used them in her work, tempering steel with the scorching heat of pyre trolls and etching runes with the searing acid of slags. Horgle learned these techniques, eventually employing them to craft superior weapons and armor. He toiled contentedly at the forge until the ill-fated day a large force of dragonspawn and blightedness stormed his Creel's home. He fought alongside Lagertha, who rallied the Creel's defenses and inflicted a heavy toll on the enemies before she was finally struck down. Her tragic death induced Horgle's own sorceress awakening, and he took control of the remaining trolls and launched them at the enemy. Despite his efforts, the Creel was lost, and Horgle was forced to retreat with a few other survivors. Feeling no real kinship with these Trollkin and seeing them only as a reminder of his loss, he soon left them behind as well. Horgle drifted south, his heart full of bitterness and hatred, and the only possessions he salvaged from the old life were his mother's smithing hammer and a fiery sword shaped by his own hand. He wandered for some time, surviving by his craft and his weapon, before finding his way to those allied with the United Creels. There, his smithing prowess and promise as a warlock caught the attention of certain Creel leaders. Gristle Bloodsong is one who sees great potential in the young Trollkin. Beyond his innate ability to lead trolls into warfare, she believed Horgle may have an even greater destiny forging weapons of power for the Creels. While he still prefers solitude, his desires to exact vengeance on those who destroyed his former life drives him to fight alongside his kin in battle. His affinity with pyre and slag trolls continues to serve him well, both on and off the battlefield. In combat, he brings the power of fire, hammering foes with the same strength and precision he devotes to shaping metal. There is always a simmering rage within Horgle, and in the heat of battle, his sword and hammer are infused with his inner fury. Well, Horgle the blacksmith, and a magical blacksmith at that, which makes him even more dangerous, because when warlocks or warcasters start forging their own weapons and inciting it with magic based on animus abilities from, creatures they work with, these weapons can, well, he already pretty much makes them magical in his own right. But yeah, very dangerous guy, very dangerous. In fact, makes him even more dangerous in this side because he is a journeyman warlock, which means you can tag him up alongside other full-blooded warlocks, or full-fledged warlocks as well, making him a very useful thing to have in your army. But let's read over his Mark 3 to Mark 4 changes and see if there's any, and then we can just go over him in general. Alright, let's start with his stats. So he is a speed 5, his magic attack is a 4 because he is a journeyman warcaster. His mativs is 6, so he's pretty decent in melee. Defense of 12, arm 15, so arm has dropped by 1 point, probably a balanced situation there. He also has tough and immunity to fire, so that's not any different from his original setup. We have burnt meat as one of his abilities. Warbeast in this model's battle group can charge enemy models suffering from the fire continuous effect without being forced, which is kind of terrifying when you're already cooking and the Warbeast get real excited about it. So that's a spooky thing to have his Warbeast like that. And he requires at least one Warbeast to run with him, just because that's how Lesser Warlocks work. Lesser Warlock, also this model is not a Warlock or Leader model, but has the following Warlock special rules: a Battle Group Controller, Fury Manipulation, Healing, Spellcasting, and Transferring Damage. This model must have at least one Warbeast in its battle group at the start of the game. So nothing has changed there. Let's check out his weapons to see if anything has changed there either. He still has his flaming sword, So it is still a mat 6, power 11, and it's magical and causes continuous fire. So if he charges in first, lights somebody on fire, his war beast can run up behind him without having to spend any fury, and then you can just, burn out all that fury to their heart's content. And then he has his smith's hammer, and this hammer is a mat 6, range 1, pow 12. Also magic weapon, and it has ram attached to it, so he can start pushing people around with that. When an enemy model is hit by this weapon during the model's combat action, it becomes knocked down and can be pushed 1 inch directly away from this model. If that model is pushed, this model can immediately advance 1 inch directly towards it. And since he is a warlock model, he can use his focus to keep making additional attacks. So he can actually catch somebody on fire, knock them down, and then keep knocking more people down. So that's always a very useful ability. It makes him even more dangerous. As a solo, he's very, very dangerous. But his spells include Hot Shot, so target model in the spellcaster's battle group gains boosted range attacks, or boosted range attack damage rolls. Sorry, I missed the end one. And this is an upkeepable spell, so always useful to have, you guys. So if you can get at least one guy with a range attack or a spray attack, even better. They get boosted damage rolls on it, which is a free boost, is always very useful, and the more range attacks you got for that, even better. It appears that his Ember Spark has been replaced with Immolation. Ember Spark, that original spell, before it was changed out, gains an additional die on the spellcaster's attack roll if the target is not suffering the fire continuous effect. And then Ember Spark causes fire damage, and on a hit, target model suffers continuous effect. So that was a cool spell, not really super useful, but they just replaced it with a little bit easier read for the Immolation. So Immolation causes fire damage on a critical hit. Model suffers fire continuous effect. Real simple, easy to use. Maybe not as far of a range, but still very useful to have. And as a solo, this guy is a fantastic guy. Real good at hitting people, and he can control his own warlock or war beast. So yeah, and especially if you get him with a ranged war beast or a war beast that has any type of spray, this guy would be even more useful. So keep him always in your back pocket, and the blacksmith's always good to have in general around your army. But let's